Buongiorno a tutti e bentornati ad Aspettando MobilitARS. Questo è il secondo dei 3 appuntamenti che ci porteranno verso MobilitARS, dell'arte della gestione della mobilità urbana, che è il primo simposio formativo in Italia dedicato quest'anno al tema delle città senza auto. Si terrà il 26 e 27 maggio a Reggio Emilia al centro Loris Malaguzzi. Io sono Paolo Pinzuti e quest'oggi intervisterò un personaggio molto interessante. Interessante come quello che ho intervistato la settimana scorsa, anzi se ve lo siete persi vi invito ad andarlo a rivedere. Krzysztof Najdowski è l'assessore al verde e riforestazione urbana del comune di Parigi, che ci ha raccontato un po' dei suoi piani che ha attuato quando era assessore alla mobilità e che adesso sta attuando in quanto assessore al verde. Oggi invece incontreremo Elke van den Brandt, che è la ministra dei trasporti della regione di Bruxelles, che purtroppo non potrà essere con noi a MobilitARS a Reggio Emilia, ma che comunque ci teneva a presentare il piano di quello che è la sua visione di città, di quello che sta facendo, di quello che farà. Ma diciamo insomma che più di quello che vi posso raccontare io, ve lo potrà raccontare lei. Qui sotto adesso compariranno dei sottotitoli, quindi se anche non avete grande familiarità con l'inglese non vi preoccupate perché potrete seguire direttamente. Ma facciamo parlare lei adesso. Today we are with Elke van den Brandt. And Elke, may I call you Elke? Welcome.
Of course, you can, of course.
Okay, would you like to introduce yourself first of all to our audience?
Okay. I'm Elke van den Brandt. I'm the Minister of Mobility, Public Works and Road Security in Brussels, the capital of Europe.
Yeah. And how long you're in office now?
So I'm in office now for 2.5 years. So I'm mid-term. A term in Belgium is 5 years. So I'm halfway through our term. And I hope we can do a lot of more work because we're not done yet.
Okay, what are you focused your activity on in the last years, let's say?
Well, Brussels, as you might know, is a city that has a lot of congestion, which is oriented really in hosting cars coming to the city center, and that has a huge impact on the way our city is organized. And if we want to reshape our city, if we want to regain public space, if we want to have more trees, more terraces, more space for people to walk, to meet, to visit Brussels, then we need to change our mobility. So for me, the main focus is doing this mobility shift, making sure that we use mobility as a way to change the city and to make the city of Brussels even more attractive and the potential that we have as a city to get out of it. And we need to change our mobility habits if we want to do that.
Yeah, and in this change, what are you focusing on, actually?
For us, the main focus is a shift from car mobility to all different kinds of mobility. So for the moment, a lot of roads in Brussels are and areas and neighborhoods are oriented for having cars passing through. So making sure that we're going to canalize traffic and we're going to put the traffic on the main axis so that in the neighborhoods where people live, where children need to play, where children need to come out, that those areas can be car-free or have low traffic and slower traffic, safer traffic, and in that way we can really create a city where people just can be and feel healthy, feel safe, and feel welcome.
That's great. So, okay, I think you have a presentation to showcase all the work you're doing right now in Brussels, right?
Yes, I would really like to show you some images of Brussels, and the main idea is that Brussels is what we share. Brussels is the capital of Europe, so it's also your capital, and I really want you to feel welcome when you come to Brussels. And in order to get there, we need to work about tourism and about internationalization, but we also need to work about public space. And that's my main focus. I'm responsible for public space, for roadworks, for road security, so organizing public space is crucial. And at this point, when you come to Brussels, you will notice that about 70% of the space, the public space, is taken up for cars, either in parking space, either in car lanes. So if you want to change that, if you want to have more place for terraces, for people to meet, for trees to be planted, for playgrounds for children, if we want those things, we need to make space and we need to make other choices in our public space, and we need to reorganize our mobility in order to get there. So that's my main focus, and that's the main idea behind our mobility plan. We have a mobility plan for Brussels for the coming 10 years, and in those 10 years, we really want to change our city. And there are 3 central aspects. First of all, we want public space to feel safe. We want it to feel welcoming, and we want it to be healthy. So first of all, with being safe, what does it mean? It means that when you go out, when you go into the city, that you feel welcome, that you feel safe, that you dare to go out, that parents have no fear to have their children go out in public space and make sure that it feels good for everybody. And in order to do so, we have signed this convention about Vision Zero, which you probably all know. It's saying we want 0 people hurt or dying in our streets by 2030. In order to get there, we took several measurements to make it happen. One of them is the City 30, so the Ville 30. So we decided to reduce speed limit until 30 kilometers an hour, which was really important because one of the main elements in road security, we know that if cars drive slower, that they have a better vision, that they have a longer reaction time, and that if there's an accident, the impact will be lower. So driving slower is key for changing the city. So that's one of the first things that we implemented in Brussels. Of course, it changed the way Brussels looks. It changed all the streets in Brussels. So this was one of the main objects of this period in this main policy topics that we wanted to put in front. We also have, of course, it's not just changing legislation. You need to have the controls. We have a police biking, controlling those speed limits. And we are also having, of course, infrastructure being adapted so that it's safer to walk and to cycle and to be in Brussels, and make sure that driving slower is something that feels natural and that has a rational impact. It's also about tackling dangerous points. We know we have black points, really dangerous points in the city, and making sure that we make them safer with temporary measurements, with concrete blocks if we need to, but of course with permanent projects if we can, to make sure that our city becomes safe, because that's the first element for people to go out. It's the first aim. It's if you do not create a city where a child of 12 can go alone to school by bike, by bus, by foot, without parents having a fear of the life of their child, you're not having a city you want to. So that's the dream we have. It's making sure that all of our children just can go out and make sure that it's not something that could be life threatening. So we have a whole set of measurements in order to get there. And of course, this brings a huge dynamic to Brussels. It's also about securing roads and making sure that everybody is on the road. Has it a good impact? Yes. We're going on for 1 year now, and in this 1 year we have reduced accidents by 20%, and 25% of accidents which have people physically hurt, and we also reduced the number of deaths in our city. And so this is really important, because if you have 8 people that are not are still alive now because of driving slower, I tell people this is what the City 30 does. The City 30 is saving lives. It is making sure that our casualties in our traffic are being reduced. And it's crucial, I think, if you want people to enjoy living and being and visiting a city. So that's one element that's safe. It's making sure that people dare to go out. Of course, you also need to make sure that people feel welcome, that they want to go out, that they feel like public space is also there for them. And that's not a detail. We have several places in Brussels where people don't really feel welcome or don't feel like it's their public space. And so we're creating all these new little parkways and sideways in the heart of a city to invest in all the neighborhoods, also the neighborhoods with a poor population, to show them this public space is here for you. It's welcoming. There's banks, there's playgrounds for children. It is created to be in and to go into. And I think that's also very important if you want an inclusive city, a city where all the citizens feel part of and where they can be outside in their home, because that's important to tell in a city like Brussels, like in many other cities. People don't have gardens. People often don't have even a terrace. So going to public spaces, it's actually being at home as well. It is a way of feeling at home and creating a public space that gives you that feeling is really important for us. And doing that in all neighborhoods, in all kind of population areas is crucial for our politics. That means also that you invest in universal design, that when you start a new project, that you think about who's going to use this public space, who will be going out there with difficulties do exist. And it's on one hand, it's about physical obstacles for people who are in a wheelchair or parents with children, but it is also about a lot more. It is also about making sure that also non-visible obstacles are countered. And so we have this project here with parents of school children who are saying, well, our child wants to go to school by bike, and making sure that we can guide them, and we want to learn to cycle in Brussels. And so we have these courses for adults to learn to cycle in Brussels, which are a huge success. And if you talk to those people and if you ask them, why did you do it? It's often starts with, I want to accompany my child. But if you talk to those people, and it's mainly women who are signing up, they're saying, now I can go farther in this city. I used to do everything by foot, because these are people who don't own a car, because it's too expensive often to own a car. And by learning how to bike and learning how to cycle in an urban context, they say, I can do longer distances now. I have more freedom to get around in cities. So it's actually a very empowering way of people of using public space. So also these obstacles, these invisible obstacles that do exist more often for women than for men, but for many groups in society, are crucial to tackle if you really want to have this city that is open and welcoming for everybody. It's about putting women more visible in public space. It's about the prices you tackle, because we have a good public transport in Brussels. We're very proud of it. We have the metro, we have buses, we have trams, and we're still investing to have it even wider, but making sure that money is not an obstacle, so that you, for young people until 25 years old, you can have a ticket for public transport for 12 euros per year. So making sure that all the obstacles, visible, non-visible, or financial obstacles, are tackled, and that we're making sure that everybody can access and feels welcome in public space. So that's the second part. So the first one was safety. The second one was feeling welcome. And the third part, of course, is making a healthy city, creating a healthy environment in this public space. And that's crucial. If we see like air pollution in Brussels, if we see it over the years, it is getting better. In measurements like the low emission zones and all the measurements we're taking to create better air quality are working, but it's still going very slow. And we still have to realize that about 95% of the people live in a street where air quality is worse than what the World Health Organization has put as a limit. So we really need to speed up on our goals for this. And what's also really important is that this air quality is not something that is equal. It's not something that is equal everywhere. What we see that is in the poorest neighborhoods, air quality is the worst. So it's really a social issue. And that's crucial to understand, because often it is said that air quality measurements or climate measurements are for the rich people, or when you have the time to think about it, but it's not true. It's essential, a social issue. It is especially the children in the poorest neighborhoods have the most respiratory diseases, the people in the most precarious situation who lose the most of their healthy years. So creating this emergency about how it is a social issue is also essential. And so tackling climate change, tackling air pollution is for us a social theme, and it's also about better life quality. If we invest in more trees in our city, it's good for the climate, it's good for air pollution, but it's also a better city to live in. So we know that investing in climate change, investing in air pollution, investing in a healthy city is something that will make life better. And so that's one of the central themes that we want to bring forward. We also have this 10-minute city, but I think you all know the concept. It's making sure that people in their neighborhood have access to green, to grocery, to schooling, to health infrastructure. So making sure that in your neighborhood, in every neighborhood, you have access to all the needs you have. Doesn't mean that you need to stay in your neighborhood, but it means that you can find all infrastructure, all social needs in your own neighborhood. So that is one of the main goals of our city. So I didn't try to do an elevator pitch on what we're doing in Brussels, what we're changing, and I hope in this way you have an overview of our plans and the way we look at our city.
That's great. That's very inspiring. Thanks a lot, Elke, really for your presentation. Now I have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. First of all, you said you became a city 30, right? So
Yes.
most of the city is 30 kilometers per hour time limit, speed limit. And what was the reaction of the citizens to this decision?
Well, in the beginning, there was, of course, a lot of protest and people who were not interested, but then we changed the way the question. So if you asked, we did a big question and we asked people, do you agree with putting all of Brussels in this zone 30? And of course, the majority of people said, oh no, it's too much, it's too radical, it's too fast. So it's a known reaction if you want to put change. But then we changed the way we asked our question, and we said, which speed limit do you want in your neighborhood? And then 75% of the people say, we want lower traffic, we want road security, because this is where our children go out, where our parents go out. So then we noticed that if you ask people what they want for their neighborhood, that there's quite a lot of support to road security measurements. And so in our communication, we really invested in explaining that in every neighborhood we have schools, in every neighborhood there's people going out, so that actually Brussels is a combination of about 50 neighborhoods, and making sure that in that way we try to promote the road security measurements we're taking, and also the reducing of the speed limits.
So if you are well understanding what you are saying, it's not just a matter of political will, it's also a matter of communication, right?
It is crucial. It's communicating, and even we did a lot of communication, but it's always difficult on the moment when you're changing. So the moment we put it in place, we had a lot of reaction, a lot of media attention, and it seems a bit a radical change for some people, but we told from the beginning that what we've learned from other cities, take Grenoble, take Helsinki, who put it in place before us, and what we learned from them was essential to explain to people why we're doing it. So it would be better for road security. There will be less people dying in our streets. It would be better for noise. There's a lot of noise pollution, and noise is an important source of stress in a city. It would be better for air quality. It would be better for the conditions to cycle and to walk in a city. So we knew there were a lot of advantages, but only after we've put them in place, people are seeing them. And so the fear people had in the beginning that there would be a lot of congestion and that people would lose time and everything, we said, no, it's not going to happen. But it's only after a year that you can show it with results to people. We can show now that people are not losing more time in Brussels. We're monitoring it, and it doesn't take you a longer time to get from point A to B in Brussels. It's actually the same time, but because you don't speed up till 50 to go down to 0. No, you go to 30, and it's a bit more at ease. And so people don't lose more time, but people do gain road security, and we have less accidents, we have less deaths in our city, we have less noise in our city, and although we're not finished yet, because it's 1 year and we need several years to implement it, and we really need to invest still a lot in infrastructure and in making sure that it is respected, but we do see and feel the difference, and we see now that people have accepted it, and that people now see that this is also creating a better city. So even there is still some protests, and people who are not convinced, most of the people have accepted it and have seen the benefits of driving a little bit slower.
And but let's talk about cycling. Do you have any initiative to encourage citizens to use the bicycle?
The most important way to encourage people is to provide infrastructure. So if we ask people why they're not cycling in Brussels, the foremost given answer is, I feel not safe. I'm lacking infrastructure. So what we did was we speed up with the cycling infrastructure. It was something that's already going on in Brussels for some time, but we said, okay, we really need to speed up. So this the last 3 years we put in 50 kilometers of bicycle lanes, and sometimes it's with very temporary measurements, but just to make sure that you have this network of connecting cycling infrastructure. And we're not there yet, still have a lot to do, and Brussels comes it comes from far away. It's not like Amsterdam or Antwerp or Ghent, where they have this culture or this history of investing in cycling infrastructure, but we see in Brussels, whenever we put a bicycle lane in place, cyclists are coming. We have doubled the number of cyclists in a few years, and we see that, for example, Rue de la Loi, which is one of the most symbolic axes of Brussels, where we took away a car lane to put in place bicycle infrastructure. There was a lot of protest when we did it, because we dared to take away one of the 4 car lanes to put a bicycle lane. And now we see we've crossed 1 million cyclists over this axe. So we see that infrastructure is the way to convince people to cycle. And so that's the main thing we do. Of course, you also have to invest in other aspects. You need to communicate, learn children how to learn a bike, and learn parents how to use a bike, and make sure that you invest in the education as well. Make sure that you provide parking spaces for cyclists. There's a lot more to do, but infrastructure is key, is essential.
Okay, and you mentioned that you wanted to reduce the car use in the city center. I mean, in the city of Brussels. What's wrong with that? Why you want to reduce the use of cars?
Well, it's mainly, it takes a lot of place. If you want to transport 100 people and you do it with 100 cars, or you do it with a few buses, it's a huge difference. Or if you do it with 100 bicycles. So it is taking a lot of space, and in a city, you cannot have more and more space. No, the space is limited. You need to organize your public space in a way that everybody can benefit from it. And for the moment, it's so car-oriented that other functions of public space, for tourists, for social encounters, for children to go out, all those elements are not being developed as it should be, or it could be in our cities. So changing the way we move around within Brussels is actually the best way to make sure that the city is more nice to live in or to visit. And there will always be cars. I think there are people who don't have an alternative, or there are situations in which a car is the best way to go around. But if a part of the people who are now using their cars go on by bike or by public transport or by foot, it would really make a difference in how the space is used in Brussels. It would really make a difference in air quality, because those cars are polluting a lot. It will also make a huge difference in congestion and the stress that people have. It will also have a huge impact on the economy, because we're losing billions a year because time lost in traffic jams. So there's so many benefits if we have a smarter way of transporting people and goods, and that's why we need to do it.
And do you think there is a future the future of cities will be car-free?
I think neighborhoods will be slow neighborhoods with few cars. So that's why we have divided Brussels into 50 neighborhoods, and we created a circulation. We are creating a circulation plan for each neighborhood. So we're doing 5 neighborhoods per year. So in 10 years, we hope to have changed circulation in the whole of Brussels. And the aim is to make sure that people who live there or who need to be there still can access the neighborhood by car, but that driving through that driving through the neighborhood is encouraged, so that you can get in the neighborhood, but you end up at the same spot, so that it's not attractive to go everywhere. And that way you can canalize traffic on the axis where you want to canalize traffic, and in the neighborhoods where people live, where tourists are visiting, then you can create car-free or neighborhoods with only local traffic, and that would make a big difference. And I think that's the future of Brussels, but the future of all European capitals.
That's very interesting. I have a last question for you before you go, and which is, I'm sure many people are listening to you right now and thinking, well, it's easy. This is Brussels. No, but we are Italian. We are in Italy. We don't have the right culture. It's always like that. No, what would you say to those people?
It's the same in Brussels. If you tell to people in Brussels that cycling might be for, it's for the Netherlands, it's for the North, it's not for us. And actually, there's a lot to win if we all start walking and cycling more. For first, it's good for health. If you walk more, if you cycle more, you're healthier, and it's good in the long way. It's also good for your mental health. Whenever I'm in a bad mood, I jump on my bike, and after 10 minutes, I'm in a good mood. So it really changed the way you're feeling. It makes you happier. So for once, there's a very personal gain for it, but also as a city, you can really win if people start walking and cycling more. They take up less space. So you have a city where you can do other things than organizing car space or parking space. It's better to meet one another. If you're both walking, you can chat with your neighbor and instead of fighting for the last parking spot. So it is also a way of having a more social, coherent city. We will tackle climate change only by taking measurements also in the cities. We will tackle air pollution. So there's so much to win if we make other choices in our mobility. For me, mobility, it's not an obstacle, but it's a solution. Different mobility is a solution to better cities, to nicer cities.
Wonderful, wonderful. Elke, I'm very sorry that you won't be with us in Reggio Emilia for the MobilitARS. I hope you will join next year. And yeah, I will switch to Italian in order to greet also the audience. Stay with me for a while more. And quindi questa era Elke van den Brandt, ministra dei trasporti della regione di Bruxelles, che purtroppo non poteva essere con noi a MobilitARS, che vi ricordo sarà il 26 e 27 maggio a Reggio Emilia. I posti sono limitati, quindi vi consiglio di iscrivervi subito su www.mobilitars.eu. Ci saranno personaggi un po' di tutti i livelli, ci saranno esperti internazionali, consulenti, amministratori, insomma tutto quello che serve per cercare di vedere assieme quelle che sono le problematiche delle città oggi, ma anche come riuscire a risolverle con delle soluzioni pronte all'uso, magari mutuando e copiando quello che è stato fatto altrove. Io vi ringrazio per essere stati con noi e ci vediamo settimana prossima di nuovo aspettando MobilitARS.